Almost a century ago, in February of 1926, a man started what we now refer to as Black History Month with an end goal in mind, and that goal has yet to be realized. I have to admit something. Before today, doing research for this very specific topic, I had never heard of this person before. And it's actually quite disappointing, as myself, I used to be a teacher. And of course, as a teacher, we celebrated Black History Month every single year on February at our school. And it always culminated in some sort of performance or Black History showcase put on by the students for the parents or for the community itself. And even myself, when I was a little kid going to school, of course, we celebrated Black History Month every single year, and we learned about it, so on and so forth. And as a matter of fact, in high school, I was actually a part of a Black History Month club, or not Black History Month club, but just a Black History club in general. And I had never heard this person's name brought up before. I certainly don't recall it. And on into college, same type of situation. We celebrated Black History Month. There were Black History showcases, so on and so forth. Never heard of this person's name before today. So obviously a great level of disappointment has been realized on my part, but hopefully you all have heard of this man before. And if not, it's okay, because today we're going to dig into it and we're going to learn more about this man, Black History Month itself, as well as the goal that has yet to be achieved and whether that goal has yet to be achieved purposefully or not. And I'll leave that up to y'all to figure out. So the number one question here is, who is this person I'm referring to? Well, this person is the one and only Carter G. Woodson. Does that name sound familiar to you? Hopefully it does. But if not, again, I was completely unaware of this person and their achievements. But he is the person credited with the creation and starting of what we now refer to as Black History Month. Carter G. Woodson was born December 19th, 1875. He died on April 3rd, 1950. He was the son of two slaves, but he went on to become a professor at Howard University. He was also an author, an American historian, and he was only the second African American to receive a PhD from Harvard University. Now, the first person to receive that PhD, or the first African American person to receive a PhD from Harvard University, was W.E.B. Du Bois. Now, many of us know that name quite well because every single year for Black History Month, W.E.B. Du Bois is always mentioned, always celebrated for his accomplishments. And he should be. He is the founder of the NAACP. However, again, Carter G. Woodson is the founder of Black History Month. Now, how did Carter G. Woodson go about starting what we refer to now as Black History Month? You see, that story takes place all the way back in the summer of 1915 in Chicago. Carter G. Woodson, along with thousands of other Black people from all across the country, traveled to Chicago to take place in a 3-week-long celebration. That was a celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. And during the celebration, there were historical exhibits and artifacts for people to view and take place in that celebrated Black history, culture, and the experience of Black people in America. Upon completion of this celebration, Carter G. Woodson was so moved and so inspired that he decided to start his own organization with the goal of promoting the history and life of African Americans. So on December 9th, he met with 4 other individuals in Chicago, and they formed what is now the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And this association is still in existence today and still working to promote African American history, culture, literature, and the accomplishments of its people. And as a matter of fact, that association is the main source for most of the information I am presenting to you today. So please go check them out. Whether you're a teacher who wants to incorporate more about Black history into your classroom, or you're just a curious individual who would like to find out more about this specific topic or more information in general about African American studies, please check out the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. All right, fast forward just 1 year from 1915 to 1916, and Carter G. Woodson decides to publish a journal. The title of this journal is the Journal of African American History, and the purpose of this journal is to highlight African American research, history, pedagogical studies, and do book reviews specific to African American history. But Carter G. Woodson did not stop there. He did not quit. He kept working to urge multiple organizations to promote Black history. And in 1924, that's exactly what his former fraternity did. Omega Psi Phi created what was then known as African American History and Literature Week. It later became African American Achievement Week. And then, just 2 years after that, in February of 1926, after having success with African American History and Literature Week, Mr. Carter G. Woodson sends out an official press release announcing the very first celebration of African American History Week. All right, so we now know Black History Month, or should I say African American History Week, started February 1926. On top of that, though, we get a response to a very common question. And that question is, why is Black History Month in February? Now, with this question often comes the response of, well, Black History Month is in February because the man, the government, or whomever wants to spend as little amount of time celebrating Black history because, of course, February is the shortest month of the year. But we know that's not true because Carter G. Woodson, he's the one responsible for starting what we now refer to as African American History Month. And that is not what he was thinking about when he started it way back in February of 1926. In fact, Mr. Woodson, he specifically chose February to celebrate African American History Week. And the reason he did this was because of tradition and reform. You see, he was paying respect to two men who played a vital role in shaping Black history here in America. And those two men, which we always hear about during Black History Month, are Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. Now, these two men, they have birthdays in February. And leading up to what was African American History Week, oftentimes within the Black community, they would celebrate these two men and their birthdays throughout the month of February. So one of the initial goals with celebrating African American History Week was not to replace the celebration of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, but instead was to extend the study and celebration of African American history. Now, Mr. Woodson did want to shift the sole focus from being on these two gentlemen to more so being on the study and celebration of the race as a whole, as Mr. Woodson valued the group more so than the individual and wanted to put more emphasis on that, as he believed that the countless number of men and women within the Black community was worth celebrating more so than just two individuals themselves. And immediately after Carter G. Woodson sent out his press release, the celebrations began popping up everywhere, from schools to public forums, as well as the formation and creation of private organizations and clubs dedicated to celebrating the historical contributions of Black people. For over a decade, Carter G. Woodson worked with these schools, clubs, and organizations by providing them with more information, historical artifacts to help broaden their studies in Black history, literature, and culture. And on top of that, they also created an annual theme for African American History Week. And in 1937, another very well-known figure when we talk about Black History Month, a person by the name of Mary McLeod Bethune, began working with both Mr. Woodson as well as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, began publishing a journal focused specifically around that annual theme for African American History Week. And to this very day, this February in 2024, there is still a theme for every single year for Black History Month. Now, this year's theme is African Americans in the Arts. And even this, I had no idea that was an actual thing. I was not aware that there was a specific official theme for each and every Black History Month going all the way back to 1928. And as time continued on, so did the growth and success of African American History Week. And starting early in the 1940s, we start seeing a big push to expand the study of Black history within schools, as well as trying to expand African American History Week beyond that one singular week. In addition to this, we also start seeing for the first time in Southern schools the incorporation of Black history into their curriculum in a hope and attempt to further advance the studies of Black history. But remember, Carter G. Woodson died April 3rd, 1950. And at the time of his death, there was no Black History Month. It was still only African American History Week. It wasn't until the late 1960s, during the civil rights movement, that many young black college students began really diving deep into black history and studying what it was all about. This is when they started making the push to change African American History Week to Black History Month. And it was on the 50-year anniversary of the first African American History Week in 1976 that the very first officially government approved Black History Month celebration took place when President Gerald Ford signed a proclamation endorsing that year's annual theme for Black History Month, which at the time was America for All Americans. And ever since then, every single year, every single president has signed the proclamation endorsing that year's annual theme for Black History Month. Now you might still be wondering, what is this failed goal of Black History Month that the title of this video alludes to? Well, you see, Mr. Carter G. Woodson was very clear in that he wanted these annual African American History Week celebrations to come to an end. And they did, of sorts. They just turned into monthly celebrations, which, at first thought might be a good thing. However, Mr. Woodson hoped for and pushed for the study and celebration of African American history, literature, and culture to become a year-long, never-ending process. Mr. Woodson wanted the study of these things to become so regular, so common, and so normal that the need for such celebrations would be pointless, as it would just be a normal part of everyone's regular life and education. Mr. Woodson didn't want an annual celebration. He wanted a daily celebration. He believed that Black history was too important to America and the world to be crammed into or limited to any specific amount of time. He wanted to make that shift from an annual Black History Week to a Black History Year. That was Mr. Carter G. Woodson's goal that has yet to be realized. Some would even argue that Black History Month itself is a symbol of failure, as it has now been almost 100 years since Mr. Woodson's initial goal of celebrating and studying Black history year-round has not been realized. But maybe they're wrong. Maybe his goal has been realized. I'll leave you with that question to debate and that point to make for yourself. Are we at a point where we no longer need an annual celebration of Black history because it has become so commonplace and so thoroughly understood? Or are we still at a point where we need that annual celebration because we have yet to fully embrace, to fully study, and to fully understand the importance of Black history here in America?